Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react. I'm Kyle Bryant. And I'm Sean Bombsark. Together, we are constantly seeking opportunities to live beyond our circumstances.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. This is episode 53. Today, our episode is all about diet and how the things we put in our bodies affect the way we feel and perform. And I think that is an important thing. It's something that we all think about, well, all the time, right? I mean,
And something we all dread, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I went to Panera and got a sandwich. Because, I had to get some fuel right before we record, right? And I had the person bring my coffee out to my car for me. And I had her put my bag, the little bag of food, in the passenger seat. And then I got in and realized that there was still a bag from Panera from yesterday. I'm like, I am lazy. So anyway, I feel like that's an illustration of, we always have to be thinking about food and figuring out how to fuel ourselves. So today our guests are Dr. Shana McCormick and Donna Marie T. DeVito. And Dr. McCormick is an endocrinologist, which means that she studies how our body's hormones control various important bodily functions, like the way we metabolize food and our mood, our growth and development. But the thing we want to focus on today is on how our bodies process food for energy. Excited to talk to an expert about it. Dr. McCormick, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. And Donna Marie T. DeVito has been a pediatric dietitian for the past 18 years. Of that time, 15 years of it, she's been at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. She specializes in the nutritional care of patients with neuromuscular conditions. And she's been working with Dr. McCormick for a little over a year with patients with mitochondrial conditions. And so, Donna, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. Well, we're excited for this. And, during this whole conversation, we're going to be thinking about how this applies to our own lives. And I know our listeners are as well. First of all, as we get started, Dr. McCormick, can you describe your interest in the way the body processes food and how that relates to metabolic disease? And what the heck is metabolic disease?
Well, thanks so much. What a terrific question. And I could go on and on with the answer, but I'll try to be concise for the purpose of your listeners. So metabolism, as you said, is how the body uses energy. So really, if you think about any disease process, there's often an aspect of the disease that is energetic. In other words, how that affects how the body takes energy from the world and turns it into a form of energy that we can use. So metabolic disease is a disorder of those types of functions. Now, as I pointed out, lots of diseases have disorders of energy metabolism as a feature, but there's some diseases where that's really central. So you mentioned I'm an endocrinologist, so one of the health problems I take care of is diabetes. And diabetes can come from a lot of different health problems. And as you know, I take care of people clinically who have Friedreich ataxia and other disorders whose genetic underpinnings affect the mitochondria. And a lot of folks who have disorders of energy metabolism that affect the mitochondria develop diabetes. So that's from where my interest comes. But if you think about it, it's a really interesting scientific question and health question. Like our bodies every day have to take the energy which is in abundance in the world outside of us, right? And use it turn it into a form that our bodies can use, as you said, to do what we want to do every day and to perform. But our bodies also have to work out this really careful budgeting. Like, we don't calculate how many calories we take in, right? And we don't tell our bodies like, oh, today I'm going to be lazy. Today the next day I'm going to exercise, and also like over the course of our lives. So, and yet our bodies have to do this complex budgeting to make sure there's enough energy available for all the different things we want to do, where it gets, energy coming in ways that are not very deliberate. So when those calculations go awry, people can get sick. But the flip side of that is if we can be thoughtful about the energy that goes in our bodies in the form that it takes, maybe we can help people stay as healthy as possible and function really well. So that's why a lot of my studies have a focus on energy intake and nutrition.
Yeah, I've been in a couple of your studies, and you always require a diet log for at least 3 days before I come in, and my diet logs are always good because I focus on it. I'm like, I'm going to eat well for these 3 days,
Yeah, it's different when you know somebody's paying attention to what you're eating.
So, do you know, though, Kyle, the most common comment I get when people are handing them in is they're like, this doesn't really show how I usually eat. I mean, there was so much going on, like I had a trip for work, or I had this, or I had that. Like I'm going to give this to you, but I don't really. And I said, practically everyone says that. Or sometimes they have these epiphanies like you have and say, oh, I knew someone was watching, so then I did something else. And that's fine with me. That's what people do.
Nice. So towards the end of the episode, in a couple minutes, we're going to talk about the diet log that Sean and I did almost a year ago. We wrote down everything we ate for a month, and we're going to talk to Shana and Donna about what they think about what we ate. And that was kind of inspired by the diet log that I do for your studies, Shana. And so,
awesome.
Donna, we want to hear from you. Can you tell our listeners? So now we sort of understand the principle behind, how diet fits into how we make energy. Can you tell our listeners how you and Dr. McCormick work together and what you do exactly?
Sure. I know working with Dr. McCormick is we work together. So I'm looking at what individuals eat and what their energy level is, and then looking at the type of foods that everyone eats, and are they healthy and are they very nutritious. Of course, we're allowed to have sweets, but not overdoing it, and making sure that we have the right balance of a lot of the different nutrients that our body needs. So there are equations for everyone, but the equations are not one size fits all. So it's really customizing, a diet, or what we eat according to what each individual person needs. And there are many people that have different requirements. So, and I work with the doctors and Dr. McCormick, and they'll help guide me.
So you guys kind of work together to understand the energy needs of somebody with a condition like, for example, for Friedreich's ataxia, and then sort of talk about what would be the best way to fuel that body, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'll add to what Donna said, and then Donna, I should add a comment. Like if I have someone with Friedreich's ataxia, Kyle and Sean, and if that person has diabetes, for example, or as many of our patients have decreased bone health or risk for fractures, then I have time in the course of my visit to talk about the medical management of those two types of problems, for example. But then I get to give Donna a call and say, hey, can you spend more time with folks understanding how their nutrition is currently helping or hurting those particular aspects of their disease? Maybe, Donna, you can speak a bit to what you do when you hear about those particular problems?
Sure. So a lot of times I'm looking at bone health as well, because we need specific amounts of, calcium, vitamin D, but they're not the only two vitamin minerals that are important in our bone health. And then I'm also looking at if someone has diabetes, what is their nutrition intake? Are they going to produce, like a lot of peaks and highs and lows, in your blood sugar results? So then it's working with someone to make sure that, they're getting what they need for their bone health, if that's the case, and then also evening out the blood sugar control based on what you're eating.
All right. So I wanted to talk about a particular study that I was in with Dr. McCormick, and it was exactly, it illustrated the peaks and valleys that you were talking about. And in this study, and Shana, help me out here if I get any of this wrong, but for this study, I came in twice, 2 different days, and the first day I had a shake, a little mixture of food, and so on each separate day I had one that was high glycemic index, right, and one that was low glycemic index. And
That's
then
right.
Throughout that day, we did like a glucose tolerance test, which is where you just measure the blood sugar every few minutes, right? And then you extend the time, and by the time you're done, it's like every 2 hours or something like that. So anyway, that was the study, and so it was like comparing, like I didn't know which one I was getting, the high glycemic or the low glycemic one, but I could totally tell, like, I think it was my second one that was the high glycemic. I could feel my blood sugar. I mean, I don't know that I could exactly feel the blood sugar, but I could feel like I started sweating a little bit, and my heart rate went up, and like I could feel myself like crashing, kind of like I feel like it felt like if you're like at the fair or something all day, or like at the mall, or I don't know, whatever you do when you're away, and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to eat right now, or I think I might pass out. And so I could feel that going on in my body, which was really interesting to me, and I feel like maybe it shows up in the data as well. Is that true?
So I can answer this because we are finished the study, and so we are unblinded, which means you weren't designed to be able to tell the difference between the shakes by way of the appearance or the taste or anything like that. But you are correct with respect to what order you got the shakes in. So you get the high glycemic. Yeah, good awareness of your body. And we tested blood sugar, as you noticed. We also checked lactate, because lactate is a metabolite of glucose that goes up along with it, and it turns out after a high glycemic index takes longer to clear, and we think that's pretty relevant in particular in people who have metabolic disorders. So some of how you feel may be related to that. That's an area of ongoing research that we don't know as much about. But the other phenomenon that you described, something called reactive hypoglycemia, that occurs in individuals without known metabolic disorders, but intuitively, clinically, we think that probably also happens more often in people whose blood sugars tend to go high because they have a risk for diabetes, like folks with Friedreich's. And so, the crash that you feel afterwards is because that really brisk blood sugar rise is followed by a brisk insulin response, and then the insulin kind of puts the sugar back into the tissues, but then overshoots. So too much goes back into the tissues, and you're left with lower blood sugar at the end. And that's where the sweaty, shaky, all of those symptoms come from. But, your blood sugar, since we did, you talked about the monitoring that we did, your blood sugar in day-to-day life sometimes goes as high as it did in our in some of our studies after a higher glycemic index load. So it is something that, depending on what you eat, you may experience day to day. I'll mention also that different people respond differently with respect to blood sugars to different foods. Like there's some foods that provoke a similar response in all of us. But then there's some where different people respond differently. So it behooves us to like kind of pay attention to that response. I'm curious, do you feel like, Sean or Kyle, in your day-to-day life, you've noticed that maybe high-low feeling after certain kinds of meals?
Go ahead, Sean.
I would say yes, for sure. I don't know if I can pinpoint exact symptoms because I'm not fully. Admittedly, I don't pay attention to everything I eat every day, but there are certainly times where I feel like I made a good choice and my body is thriving for a couple hours or a little time. Then there are other days where I eat something, 20 minutes later, I'm still hungry. Or 20 minutes later, I still feel deprived of energy.
Yeah. I feel like I can definitely feel the difference, and I know it before I even eat it, too. Like, between a cookie and, like, a apple or whatever, right? And so you can almost predict how you can feel. And I feel like my experience in that study has helped me even more. Like, I know how I'm going to feel between, like, a Jolly Rancher and, like, a carrot or something.
That's awesome. Donna, do you experience, you have to say, do you give advice to people in this regard?
Absolutely, absolutely. So everyone feels that way. If they eat something that's pure carbohydrate, they get digested first. They leave our stomach the fastest. Then proteins leave next, and then fats leave the stomach last. So say in the morning, if we're having cereal and maybe we're having non-fat milk, then we're going to definitely feel hungry in an hour, definitely by 2 hours. But say you have, a breakfast sandwich, with egg, cheese, some meat. You have the protein from the egg, protein from the cheese, and then the carbs as well. So we have a nice blend. So we'll feel fuller longer.
Nice. I feel like we all know that, but like, we definitely don't do it all the time.
No. And there's little things like, Sean, I'll pick on you for a little bit. I'm looking at your diet record.
Wonderful. I can't wait.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Yeah, and I noticed that early in the study with Dr. McCormick, you were consuming, I won't say the name, but one of the highest sugary cereals that's out on the market. And then as the month went on, you evolved into a healthier choice, such as oatmeal. Now, I don't know if that oatmeal had, sugar added, or if it was plain oatmeal, or if it was steel oats. That would be like
None
the
of your
upgrade.
business.
Yeah, and then you evolved from the oatmeal. Then you added berries, and then you added walnuts. So your breakfast improved as the month went on. So I was very impressed by that.
Thank you. Those are all. I mean, to be honest, the oatmeal always started with a little bit of brown sugar as well. Not a ton, but definitely added sugar. And in the process, I had gone on a trip, actually, and some friends hosted me for a couple days, and they served me oatmeal with berries.
So you rubbed off.
Cottage cheese and walnuts. And I was like, oh, that looks gross. But I tried it, and I was like, oh, that's really good. So then I came home and started doing it, and it was great.
Nice. And that's what I look for as a dietitian. I'm looking for what does each person eat? How can we upgrade the nutrition? How can we make improvements? And if you are eating great, let's keep striving to improve. And how can we do better? So that was I'm very proud of you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I wish I could say I still eat like that today.
I agree with Donna. I suggest that we have sugar cereal on here, which is like a straw man for us, right? Because we know there's not much redeeming in the sugar cereals, but then we saw you get better. And in place of sugar, like berries are fruit, and some fruit can have a high glycemic index, but many berries do not actually. So they provide some extra sweetness to your oatmeal, but don't necessarily spike the blood sugar. So for folks who have diabetes that requires insulin and really, really need to be extra careful about that, they're such a good choice.
Nice.
So you should go circle back to it. What
Yeah,
prevents
for
you?
sure. I still do oatmeal quite a bit, but I haven't done berries in a while, so I'll get back on that.
Definitely.
It's actually really easy and really delicious.
They are, and great for antioxidants, great for muscle health. So I always recommend high antioxidant meals with each person that I work with.
And Shana and Donna, for your information, Sean works at a high-end grocery store with really good produce, so he has no excuse.
Oh, Sean.
But actually, you know how hard that is? Because in the grocery store, I mean, we serve everything from like anything you can imagine. So every day you're enticed by the smell of pizza and the smell of fresh-baked brownies. It's not just the beautiful produce. It's everything. It's so hard to say no to chips.
Right.
Or
But you bring up another really good point, and Donna, I'm curious how you handle this. But all of us experience it in our day-to-day life, right? Like you can know what to do and know what makes you feel good, but sometimes makes poor choices, and sometimes that's like the environment, right? There's a good part of you're working in the grocery store. Hopefully they give you an awesome employee discount on low glycemic index berries, but then you have to withstand those temptations. And, sometimes people find it helpful to set, rules for themselves, if you wish, like I'm going to pack. Like one of the most successful interventions that I have, for patients of mine who've been successful at really modifying their nutrition, they do things like commit to packing their own lunch, even if perhaps they work at a high-end grocery store, because they know that, if I commit to only eating the things I pack for myself, even if I buy the groceries at the grocery store, take them home, pack them, bring them back, eat them, then I know I'm not going to swerve, but otherwise it's too hard. I don't know. What do you guys find works for you? Or, Donna, what do you recommend?
I'm curious to hear what Kyle and Sean say first.
I agree. Most days I'm really good about packing a lunch, and I try to cook on my days off for 3 or 4 days, or have enough to kind of get through most of the week. And as long as I pack my lunch, I usually eat pretty well, and definitely a lot cleaner than something store-bought. It's in those times where maybe, like this week, I have 1 day off. It's going to be a busy week. I'm probably not going to cook today. So I know I'm opening myself up to maybe some bad choices throughout the week. But one of the things I've done in my job, or in my life every day, we have a full-service deli in our store, and so you can make your own salad, kind of build your own healthier options. And so one of the rules I've applied to my life, I probably follow it a good 80% of the time. If I don't pack my lunch, I have to eat a salad.
Ah, there you go.
And
nice.
That salad,
I like that.
I might add some chicken to make that salad last a couple hours. But the rule of thumb for me is if I didn't pack my lunch, then I have to buy a salad. I can't buy pizza or lasagna or, something else. It's got to be a salad.
Nice.
I like it.
Especially lately for me, I've just been really lazy. I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there. I have been ordering my lunch out every single day. And unfortunately, sometimes that means salad with chicken, but sometimes that also means a grilled Reuben, which isn't entirely bad, because it's got a bunch of meat and cheese and stuff. But so anyway, I don't know. I'm up and down and totally about convenience a lot of times, especially when we get busy. I mean, I'm sure that's no different than everyone else.
Absolutely.
Another thing I've noticed too, Don, and maybe you can speak to this, and this is probably true for everybody. If I allow myself to get really hungry, then I make bad choices.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, a lot of people, our society, we're so fast-paced now, and we really have to think about what we eat. Think about planning. It's not like we're going to plan every single meal every day of the week, but it is, what are we going to have on hand, if we're in a rush? Are you going to what are you going to have in your pocket? Like, what's that protein bar? What's that? Are you going to have a protein bar? Are you going to have a bag of nuts, with cereals or dry fruit mixed in with that, like a trail mix? And it's really putting some thought, like Sean, you were saying, like with the Reuben versus the salad, that's great. So I would say the days you're having the Reuben, let's get some antioxidants in there, let's get some fruit, if you can't have the salad on the side. But never feel bad, about what you eat. That's the goal. I mean, I
think that
Go ahead,
two
Dr.
things
McCormick.
to add to that. One would be the other time I would guess you guys both noticed that, two things. One is like food, no judgment on food. No, I think there's like no rule. Like there's no feeling bad. There's lots of rules for food, and sometimes it's for a treat. So if it's going to be a treat, then make it joyful. Like enjoy it, and like just roll with that Reuben. But like and have it with a friend, and like really really love it. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is the other time that I've noticed my patients and myself make poor choices is when we're deprived of sleep. So none of these are in isolation, right? So when you're really sleep deprived, you aren't necessarily reaching for the salad. You're reaching for you're more likely to be the one reaching for the Reuben, right? And that, flip side of that is if you're exercising consistently, then, often that reminds you that your body is really important to fuel in a healthful way, and that can motivate you to make healthier choices. So all of these habits kind of feed on each other, and hopefully they feed in a positive spiral, which is what we're trying to work on for all of us.
Yeah.
I like that. Sorry.
Go ahead, Sean.
I like that correlation that none of it stands alone. It all kind of works together to maximize your ability and your performance. So I like thinking about that way. I shouldn't feel bad if I have a little fun-sized Snickers, but to me it's also, okay, just because I made one questionable choice doesn't mean I should also not go to bed early or not go to the gym and drink more soda and sugary coffee. Like, one bad choice doesn't have to turn into 28 bad choices.
That's a good point.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
So, Donna, you've been a nutritionist, you said, for 18 years. Well, I said, but you told me.
Yes.
For 18 years. So you make recommendations that are going to benefit somebody's life. But
right.
I have a feeling that it's a whole lot different, like actually seeing those things put into practice. So is that I can imagine that might be a frustrating thing, or in your job. Like, how do you deal with that? Making recommendations and being like, this is going to improve your life. Why would you do this?
Yeah. It's really starting small and then building upon someone's comfort level. So, if someone's, say they're eating, let me think of an example. I'll go back to Sean, like you're having that like high sugary cereal, and then I tell them to eat a very boring, high fiber cereal. It's not going to happen. And with the little kids that I work with too, I say, why don't we start with 75% of your cereal, very low sugar, and then we could top it off with something fun, with like marshmallow, like, the kids really like, what is it called? Little cereals with marshmallow. Lucky Charms, that's it.
Yeah.
I said, think of it like a sundae, like the ice cream is the boring, cereal, and then the top is like the Jimmy's with the sprinkles on top. So it's, starting there and then transferring, like maybe the next visit I meet, let's just go with the all healthy cereal. And it's just making slow suggestions. Like if someone's eating eggs and you're eating eggs every day, might be worthwhile to eat the eggs that have a higher omega-3, omega-6 content. And then if it's, like I said before, with the oatmeal, instead of just heating up a packet of instant oatmeal real quick, why don't we add something on it? There's chia seeds, there's the hemp hearts, those are going to add extra fiber, protein, the antioxidants, the E and the vitamins, omega-3s and 6s. So to me, it's like, what can we add, and making suggestions. And then I get to know each person. I'm so lucky I work outpatient, so I get to form a relationship and we get to know each other. And we have to have an honest conversation. Do you like this idea or not? If you don't, okay, well, let me know. Let's come up with more examples.
Yeah, I did.
I would add to what did you do?
Well, I'm just saying, I did a study a couple years ago that required a very specific diet. And during that process of the study, they gave the patients access to a nutritionist. And it definitely was helpful when you and your nutritionist work together to find common ground or, good ideas versus not going to work for you or me. It definitely made things a lot better and easier to add the right sort of nutrients, the right sort of vitamins, the right sort of foods to maximize your own performance. So I certainly see the value in having access to somebody with a stronger, more professional opinion.
Well, thank you. But I have to say, and I was so lucky to work, for the past 11 years or so with the little children as they grow up, to be young adults, and the maturity, and making better food choices. They actually tell me how different they feel, how their muscles feel better, the energy level is what they feel better. So it's really rewarding, I think, from my end, but it makes me so happy that people their body feels better with better food choices.
Yeah, I would add to what Donna said, and actually it dovetails really well. It helps to point out to work together to figure out what's the right short-term outcome to focus on, because if we talk with especially young with kids and adolescents, but young adults too, about diabetes control and talk about lifelong health, that's one thing. But if you can really point out the relationship between eating something and feeling better right away, immediately, and how that helps, if someone's an athlete, it helps them perform better on the sports field. If you see an immediate result from a small change, it usually is something that sticks more readily than trying to hope for something that you're going to see really far in the future. So I try not to get discouraged, and I try to celebrate even the smallest, what seems like the smallest accomplishment. I have a young patient with metabolic diabetes who, had never, really had always refused a fruit and vegetable. And I gave her the challenge to eat one blueberry and to text me when she did so I could celebrate. And she texted me and she said, "I can't believe how happy you are about me eating one blueberry." I said, "You know what? One blueberry, that's how it starts." And sure enough, she's broadening her horizons and taking in more. And so instead of getting frustrated that it's not more, it's you know what? If you start with one, off you go. This is going to be helpful to you.
Yeah, and I think everyone, they always want a meal plan. Do you have something written down? And I think just when I start with, work with someone and teaching them what's healthier, having them think about it, and we say, what I like to do is ask, okay, let's come up with 3 different breakfast ideas, lunch, and dinner. They're creating their own meal plan based on their food preferences. So it's good. It holds you accountable and also has something to refer to.
Sean and I both have a disease called Friedreich's ataxia, which both of you are very familiar with. So it's a metabolic disease, which basically means our metabolism is affected. It's affected to different degrees in different people. And also there's lots of different diseases that have a metabolic component that the metabolism is compromised. And so I wanted to find out if there was any specific tips or things we should think about, because I feel like lots of people that listen to this show are dealing with a metabolic disease or a disease that has a metabolic component to it. So what can you tell us about what we should think about when we're feeling our bodies?
Do you want to?
Yeah, sure. That's an awesome question. So I'll start first, but Donna can have some clues. So first, it's really important, as you guys are doing, to pay attention and think about nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress, all of these modifiable factors that can affect our metabolism, and to really optimize whatever metabolic capacities that folks have. The right treatment for different metabolic conditions, two things. One depends on the defect in metabolism. So, we talked about ketogenic diet, we talked about high-fat diets, carb-limited diets. For different kinds of inborn errors of metabolism, there are different types of diets that are most appropriate. But also, it's early days in the course of research for a lot of these conditions to understand what's the best for different conditions. And then, of course, within that, you have individual variation because people are more than their metabolic disease, both with respect to their physiologic background, but also like who they are and what else they like to do and what else is important to them in maintaining a terrific quality of life. So paying attention is step number one, working with the physician and the nutritionist. I think if folks express enthusiasm, like when I have a patient express enthusiasm for meeting with our metabolic nutritionist and to bring his or her questions and interest and openness to modifying what they're eating, the way you guys have, right? Like, look at it, think about some substitutions, think about trying things differently. Like Kyle and John, for your folks with FA, I think because folks with FA are like many others with metabolic disease that have an increased risk for diabetes, thinking about nutritional ways to modify blood sugar excursions is a very reasonable way to start with a nutritional intervention. So that's a lot of information, but I hope that's a helpful start. Donna, do you want to add something?
No, I think you summarized it really well, and I really rely on, what each person needs, and each person is different. The doctors do the detective work, and then I am able to, I think, work with each person, to create meal plans based on what they need. So each person is different. So, yeah.
But as a starting place, like hearing from a patient that he or she is interested in exploring more about how to, and I think many people are, it's just maybe they don't think to raise it with their physicians, or if the physicians are really busy and fail to ask, right? So on both sides, it behooves us to remember that spending time and effort on it can be really helpful.
Donna and Shana, thank you guys so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. I think that this was a super packed episode with a lot of good information for our listeners, and hopefully everyone can take that info and just apply it to their own lives and their own situations. I know I'm going to. And so thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Again, thanks for having us.
Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. Find us online at twodisableddudes.com and please subscribe on the iTunes. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Special thanks to our production team, Jake Tompkins and Matt LaFleur. Until next time, keep living with urgency.